Well, welcome back all my vintage dirt bike loving YouTubers, and thanks once more for joining me again as we continue our journey checking out more of those iconic dirt bikes from back in the day. Now in my next featured video we're going to take a look at a bike that Honda launched in the late 1970s and was reputed to be a revolution in motocross terms, but in reality this bike was not their finest hour. So hang around with me for the next few minutes as we check out a 1979 Honda CR125 Elsinore. Now for 1979 this machine was supposed to be an all-new design for Honda, and the new innovations on this bike would be a game changer, although in this particular case it was not for the best. Now our example is not a fully original machine from 79, but it's still a good interpretation of what these little screamers looked like in their heyday. Now Honda in 1979 promoted this bike as a new dawn for motocross 125s, but really this could be the worst motocrosser Honda ever put together. Now starting with the bike's chassis, the steel frame wasn't the best, and riders back in the day would complain that the frame would flex so much that it had the feel of being made of rubber. But once you got the bike on the move, it could end up being a very scary ride for its pilot. Now the owner of this particular bike had just recently bought the machine, and this was to be its first ever outing. So I often wonder how he got on with the bike on the racetrack, and if he even still owns it to this day. But to say these 125s were disappointing, some would say that that is an understatement, and Honda had totally redesigned this bike for 1979, but between you and me, just about every other 125 was much quicker than the Honda at the time. Now this 125 Elsinore motor for 1979 was supposed to be based on the Honda RC 125 works engine, but in reality this motor was nothing near it. It was a single cylinder 125 two-stroke reed valve induction engine with a key-in carburetor on our featured bike. Now it had a 6-speed gearbox and the standard wet multi-plate clutch, but this engine was plagued with a nasty flat spot off the idle, which made the little Elsie hard to get off the line. Although once you got past the flat spot, the little mill had a decent spread of power overall. But mind you, if you wanted to be Johnny Holeshot off the line and into the first corner, then you would always be at the back of all the RMs, the KXs and YZs, and just about everything else that went into turn 1. And this little 125 Honda was definitely the runt of the litter in 1979. Now the front forks had about 11 inches of travel for that particular year, although there was no way to do any adjustments externally on the forks, and if you wanted to make any adjustments you had to physically take the forks apart. But then again, the forks were never that great on this little 125 and could cope with most things on flat tracks, but once you got these suspension systems onto a really bumpy track, it could be a very rough ride. Now the bike's original rear shocks back in 79 would have been a pair of non-adjustable Showa units, although our particular owner has fitted a pair of these very cheap and very nasty C-back units, which were really only good enough to hold that back wheel off the ground while the bike was sitting on the stand. Now this brings me to one of the very baffling decisions Honda made with regards to the front wheel on this 79 bike. Now our featured bike has a standard 21-inch front wheel and is not, of course, the right size for this year of bike, but back in the day Honda fitted an absolutely weird 23-inch wheel to this bike in 1979, which was an unprecedented move when you consider that there wasn't one manufacturer in the world making replacement tyres for a 23-inch wheel, and so Honda had to end up making their own. Now Honda's new tyre was called the Claw Action tyre, which was downright bloody awful, to put it bluntly, because it wouldn't grip and it was as hard as steel. Although the upside to this was, of course, that the tyre never ever wore out and seemed to last forever. Now the other thing was that even after Honda launched the 1979 bike, still not one manufacturer came on board to supply replacement tyres for that very strange 23-inch wheel. But the main thinking behind this 23-inch wheel for Honda was that it was supposed to help the bike float over bumps, which would otherwise slow down a bike with smaller wheels, and it allegedly made the front of the bike track straighter. Now the steel rear swing arm on this bike was another point in question, and it tended to flex so much that the bike's chain guide would crack and then throw the chain right off the sprocket. And of course these Hondas did use a certain amount of magnesium on the engine casings and these brake back plates. Now this 1979 Honda 125 bike was also innovative in the exhaust department, as this was the first ever year that Honda had fitted a straight up expansion chamber on their motocross bikes. Although this particular expansion chamber needs to try and get this very nasty dent taken out of the pipe to make it work a little bit better. Now the rear tailpipe is another replacement item on this bike, and looks like a decent alloy replacement for the Honda original. Now of course, as you would expect on a bike that's now almost 41 years old, the handlebars, grips and levers have been changed for more modern, upgraded items. But of course many of the predecessors of the CR125 Elsinore model were very good bikes and earned a good reputation for being reliable and very quick machines. Although in this particular year, 1979, Honda just seemed to go a bit of astray with regards their design and build of this particular model. Mind you, when you look at the bike, it certainly has the look of a purposeful and proper little race bike, but when you sling your leg over the bike and put it on the track, the reality was somewhat different. But thankfully Honda saw the error of their ways with this 79 125, and for their new 1980 model they went straight back to the drawing board with a brand new design of bike for 1980, and boy did they need it. But of course the most baffling of all was why Honda fitted a 23-inch wheel to a machine that nobody could supply tyres for is beyond me, but our particular bike has been changed from the 23-inch wheel to this much more aesthetically pleasing look standard 21-inch front wheel. So there you have it, another iconic little race bike. Despite its pitfalls and other little problems, it was maybe a model that Honda would maybe like to forget. Anyhow, thanks once more for tuning into my channel, and please keep yourself safe during these very troubled times, and hopefully we will all be trackside again very soon, doing what we love, racing classic dirt bikes. This video was brought to you in association with VMX Magazine, your #1 publication for classic, vintage and off-road motorcycles. Just visit their online website for more information.